Heaven help the child who never had a home. Heaven help the girl who walks the streets alone. Heaven help the roses if the bombs begin to fall. Heaven help us all.
Hey everyone, welcome. My name is Warren Glass, and Cody Brockway is going to be helping me with the questions. And today we're interviewing Jacob Moon. All right, Jacob Moon has been a performer up in the Ontario, Kitchener, Waterloo area for about 25 years, and he's put out about 10 albums. And today we're going to be interviewing him. So without further ado, Jacob Moon.
So what is your preferred method of listening to music?
You know what? If I can get my hands on a record player, that's great, because it just it's very simple. It's got one thing that it can do for you. It's not going to answer your emails, or you can't play Angry Birds on it. You can just sit there and be captivated by the music.
Right on, right on. That's awesome. That's awesome.
And then, now, how did you get started in music? You know, like when you were a kid. You know, what influenced you to go into music?
Yeah, I think me, it was a bunch of things. It was my dad who played the 12-string guitar, and I thought that was pretty cool. It was really big and I was really small, and so it just seemed like I'd have to, in order to play it, I would basically need to be an adult. So I'd know that I had, arrived to adulthood if I could actually physically, get around this 12-string guitar. And then singing came later. That was kind of like maybe grade 9, grade 10. I started auditioning for musicals and for, sort of these band competitions. And and it wasn't really until my teen years that I got seriously into music. Before that, I was just messing around. I was not really very serious about it at all. So once I learned that you could attract girls, with the guitar, then I was all ears,
Yeah. So was there a band that really influenced you and got you excited into music and all stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, originally it was the Guess Who, Canadian rock band, good old, can rock. Gotta love those guys from Winnipeg. Yeah, and then after that, it was Bryan Adams. Saw him in concert on the Cuts Like a Knife tour. He played for about 100 people in a 1,500 seat, room, and killed it. And then I really got into Marillion. That was my band in the 80s was Marillion. I was really into them.
Then there's the door into Prague there.
Yes, it just cracked the door just a little bit, and then through the door crack came flowing all of the rest of it. The Yes, the Genesis, the Pink Floyd, all of it. Yeah, it was pretty great.
Rush, who you've
of course, yeah, Rush. Naturally, I'm Canadian. I'm male. Are you kidding me? Of course, it's it's just part of it's the rites of passage.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Actually, you've got a connection with the Rush guys, because back around the 2009, 2010 ish, they had heard your video of that you did the live cover of Subdivisions, and they wanted you to perform at the RushCon.
Yeah, actually, the way that worked was the RushCon was later.
Oh, right.
The first came that I played for them because they don't go to RushCon. They stay away from that stuff. They don't like to hang out with fans that much. I don't think. I mean, I shouldn't say that. They like to meet and greet them, before concerts, but or 2 out of 3 of them do, anyways. Neil doesn't like any of that. But no, they asked me to come and perform when they were inducted into the Canadian Songwriters Hall of Fame.
That's right. I did know that. That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't really their show to make that call on. They just kind of really put their thumb on the scale and said, we like this guy, you know. And I guess when Rush says that, the people who are organizing the event were like, well, who are we to say no? I mean, we never heard of this guy. He's an unproven quantity, but yeah, we'll give him a shot. We'll let him play at the, at the press conference, you know, announcing that they're being inducted. And we'll see how he does. So I went and I did it, and I nailed it. It was great. And so they didn't have a reason to kind of like, you know, dismiss me completely out of hand from that. But I was still had to wait a couple of weeks to hear if it was a go. And then, you know, after I heard it was a go, it was maybe a couple of weeks of preparation that I had before I would go on. And then at the event itself, there was lots of people playing, lots of people celebrating various artists, not just Rush. So it was a whole music festival in a day, you know, kind of thing, all being tightened up to a 2-hour televised segment with a host and with an audience and everything else. And so it was kind of crazy. I had to basically wait around. I sound checked at 2 p.m. and went on at like 10:30 at night.
Oh my god!
So I was the 10:30 number that night, as it were, you know.
Wow.
So I played Subdivisions. I finished the song, you know, did my final flourish, looked up at the audience, and everybody was on their feet. The Rush guys were over there in the orchestra seats, and I got to meet them afterwards, and they were just, amazing guys. And they all kind of came over and said some words to me, and got to take some pictures with them. And kind of a special event for sure. You know, it was one that I will carry with me for the rest of my life.
So that must have felt really cool when you were reached out to be a part of that, right? Like that's very awesome.
Yeah, it's sort of surreal. Like I just thought, like, why are they calling me? You know, is it because they want to sue me for using their song without asking them? You know, or what is it exactly? But so they they were calling because they wanted my celebration of their music to be part of their big night. It's pretty crazy.
Well, that's not where it stops, because you also did a cover of Something for Nothing, which ended up on the 40th anniversary release of 2112.
Yeah, the Rush's record company called me and asked me to do that, which was crazy because they had Foo Fighters, Alice in Chains, you know, all these guys doing covers, and then they asked me to do that one. And so I mean, my version is kind of sort of a singular take on it. It sounds very much like a Jacob Moon take on it. And that's kind of the way I do things. And I heard all the other arrangements, and they all variously hewed pretty closely to the original chords and arrangements of the Rush songs, which is part of the problem, actually. When you're trying to cover something, the more iconoclastic and, you know, kind of idiomatic to that band that the song is, the more difficult it is to untangle and to make a fresh arrangement of, because people are so familiar with the original and it's so specific to them, and it has so many specific moves. It's like, you know, it's like when, you know, whatever, like Steven Spielberg decides he's going to redo West Side Story. You know, it's like it's already an Academy Award-winning film that's been celebrated around the world, and he's going to come in and do it. It's the challenge is, how do you make it fresh for a new generation? How do you make it so you're not kind of stomping on the legacy of the old one, and bring something new to the table? So that's always been the challenge that I've taken when I'm doing these arrangements, is to try and put a new spin on it, and maybe, because people have the original master. If you want to hear Something for Nothing from 2112, you know where to go for that. That exists. That's a thing. But what can we do now? Like, what's possible? So that was kind of how I ran with that one. And then so that was, it was a trip getting to play for them again. Actually, I played for them again when they opened their Lee Lifeson Art Park in Toronto back in 2016. That was crazy. That was the same year that the 2112 reissue popped out. So
awesome.
Fantastic.
Now, like, in preparing for this interview, I was reading, and you're described more as a folk, like a folk singer, more of a where you have your kind of style, but you play a lot of songs like Peter Gabriel. You play Jackson Brown, those type of people. Do you feel that you have a certain sound to your music?
Yeah, I probably do. I mean, that's probably for others to say what that is, but yeah, I think I do have a way of approaching things that people recognize and go like, oh yeah, that's definitely sounds like Jacob Moon, whatever that is. I mean, I don't know what the elements are, or I know what I do. I sing and I play acoustic guitar and some electric guitar, and I work sometimes with a band. And a lot of times I work solo, and so yeah. And when I'm doing arrangements of other people's music, there's usually some creative messing around that I'm doing, and maybe I'm changing the chords, maybe I'm changing the time signature. Usually not changing the melody too much, but yeah, just kind of having fun with the inflection of the music, you know.
That's awesome. Yeah, because I noticed like when you do your Moon at Noon, Moon at 9 shows, you have a theme to them. Like you'll have an 80s night. You'll have what did you do today? You did Songs of Hope or
yeah, it's sort of a Sunday morning kind of gospel kind of hour, with a lot of, with that definition was expanded to include songs that you would probably never hear in church, but then there was a few that you might hear in church, kind of thing. So so just trying to kind of bring things under a general umbrella when I'm doing these live streams, which are, there's a different kind of entertainment, right? The thing that I do as a live stream on Facebook, that's how some people discover me. That's how some people stay in touch with me. But I have also recorded, 11 going on 12 albums. And so, I draw from that material as well when I play live or play these live streams. I'm always trying to expand that body of work,
Would you like to talk about your albums for a minute or two? Give them a...
there's a bunch of them. There's a bunch of them. And there's a lot of original stuff on there. There's some cover stuff. There's a lot with a band. There's a couple of solo acoustic live albums. There's 3 of those actually out of the 11. There's 3 solo acoustic live albums. And I always said that I would do a live album every 5 years, and I haven't really kept up with that. I did like 2002, 2007, 2012, and then I kind of gapped out in 2017 and never got around to it. And now that it's coming up to 2022, I think a live album is in the offing, and maybe it'll be a live album of stuff from the live streams. I'll professionally record those maybe for a few weeks and see if I can cull a collection of songs that reflect that time period. I think that'd be kind of nice.
Well, Warren, that actually leads me to a question for you, Jacob. It's the fact that you've been a very prolific musician for over 25 years, for sure. With, you said, 12 plus albums in your credit. You've also done lots of session work for a lot of numerous musicians too. Have you guested on any other records that maybe your fans don't necessarily know that you worked on, that you kind of did behind the scenes? Or
yeah, I've guested on, they're mostly my friends, the people that I've guested on their records, and they're people that if you knew them you would know their music, but they're indie, they're small. I haven't done like session work on a level where I'm playing on on some big album, in some big Toronto studio or anything like that. I always thought that's the direction I would go. And I put that pressure on myself to learn the guitar well enough that if called upon, I could do that. But because the work of being a original singer-songwriter takes up so much time, that's where I put a lot of my efforts, and my networking and everything else was into that. And it's a live performance as opposed to really just showing up to studios and offering to get them coffee or whatever, so I could get a chance to get in on the ground floor and maybe get to play sessions someday. I don't know. I don't even know how you get that work, really. It's probably just who you know, generally speaking, and whether you've got your reading chops together, your your gear kind of all sorted out. And yeah, and I don't think I'm probably cut out for like regular studio work. But that said, I have played on a bunch of albums, but just nothing that you've probably ever heard of. So it's yeah, it's something that's it's an unchecked box for me. It would be fun to do more of that stuff.
Now, do you prefer being a solo artist, or do you prefer playing with a band?
Yeah, I mean, the solo thing is just easy because somebody calls you up and says, you know, we need you know, somebody to open up for this artist, or we need you to do this tour or this show. And, you know, budgets are always tight, right? So they're two different worlds. I mean, the band thing, it's just, you just need a large budget. You need travel money. You need, and even with that, you know, there's lots of case studies of bands who've gone on the road and played apparently successful tours and come home broke or in debt from going out on the road and playing music. It's just because the money gets eaten up that fast, you know. So it's an economic concern initially. That's what it was for me. I thought I can go further, you know, I can go faster anyways, going as a solo act. Some say you can go further if you work with people and you work together in a team. But I preferred to go fast, I guess, early on. And so I threw my lot in with solo performance as a way of trying to work on myself as a performer and develop that side of myself. And so, yeah, so for better or worse, that's kind of where it's gone. But I mean, I played a show on Friday night with a band, and you'll hear that later in the show. That was just transcendent. It was pretty wild, you know, getting to play this music with these guys, you know. And I mean, a few days before, if you asked me if am I ready for the show, I would have said no. You know, I don't know what's going to happen. And that's the beauty of it. You get out there, you don't really know what's going to happen. And then alchemy happens, you know, the various members of the band contribute to a sound that is greater than the sum of their parts. And you're swept away by it, and you're transported as a performer into a place that even you couldn't have prepared for. So yeah. I like that idea too.
Has any band approached you to be like a lead singer or a guitarist for them?
There's an Eagles tribute band out of the States that approached me to be their Don Felder in the band.
Right on.
If you know anything about the Eagles' history, you know, them's fighting words, you know. So yeah, because Don Felder is a routinely held up as a punching bag for many of the surviving members of the Eagles, as somebody who just, you know, transgressed against the band and wrote terrible things in his biography. And so even though he's the guy who played the guitar on Hotel California and all that stuff, it's just, he's not remembered well in the band. So I looked at that aspect. I also looked at the aspect of being on the road with a busy tribute act. And I thought, no, that's not really the way I want to spend my time. You know, I don't want to be an employee of a organization that I didn't create. That just doesn't sound like any fun to me. You know, it's gainful employment, but I don't really need that. You know, it's like when that one guy says to Nicolas Cage's character in Raising Arizona, he says, "Hi, you're young, you got your health. What you want with a job?" You know what I'm saying? So it's I always come back to that line. I'm always like, yeah, I don't need a job. I'm an independent musician. You know, I get to call my own shots.
Right on, right on. Well, yeah, and you know, for you being a musician and a great musician you are, you're also known for your use of the acoustic guitar, and you also do what's called live looping, which is totally killer. What other instruments can you play well?
Oh, that's the only one I can play well. I can play passably piano, bass, and drums, but that's kind of it. Yeah. Yeah, and I'm getting into engineering and mixing now too, so that's a new point of departure for me, because I've always had other people do that stuff.
Well,
But
you
just
know
like
your
everything, when you're an independent musician and you need something done fast, cheap, and good, the only way to do that is to do it yourself if you're trained to do it. So if you want it cheap and good, it's not going to be fast. If you want it fast and cheap, it's not going to be good, you know, if you're sourcing it out to other people. So I'm always thinking, well, if I need a mix done like this week, wouldn't it be great if I knew how to do it? Then I could just put all the time in. Even if it took me twice as long, I just want to be able to know that I can bust it out if I need to in a heartbeat, you know? So I've been getting into that as well. But as far as learning a whole new instrument, oh, I'd love to learn the cello. That'd be fun. Someday if I can learn the cello. Yeah.
You know, with the live looping, could you explain how that kind of works? Is it like a time signature in your head that you go like, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you press the button type of deal?
Oh, it's that, and it's so much more, Warren. It's a whole world unto itself, and it's not for the faint of heart. It's basically a machine that has been designed to make you look like an idiot. Basically, that's what when you take it out of the box and you plug it in and you start using it, it has 3 messages for you. The first one is your ideas are not worth recording or looping. The second one is your timing is terrible, and the third one is you need to practice, basically. So if you don't hear those 3 messages and do something about it, then you'll never become a live looper. And those are the messages it had for me when I first started, because all of them were true. And so it just put me to work. I was just like, okay, I'm going to take this as a challenge. That's what it's always been. It's always been this kind of like gauntlet that's been thrown down. It's like the promise of being able to record what you're playing live and have it keep playing, and then to play something else and replicate yourself and clone yourself on stage is such a tantalizing proposition, right? It's like, if I could just do it, it would be great. But it's not as simple as that. It's like, you just, you know, they always say that, you know, that Sprite has only 2 ingredients, like lemon and lime. But there's more to it than that, right? I mean, you've got to really put in the work to figure out what the other ingredients are and put it all. And it's just, otherwise it doesn't taste right. You know, it doesn't.
Yeah, because I think the timing aspect is, I think you have in your head excellent timing. I bet you can count. I bet you can say, okay, I know what 10 seconds is without even looking at a clock.
Oh, well, yeah, that's sort of like perfect timing. Yeah, that's interesting. I think that might be just something that I've developed over time. And this device, this looping device, it trains you in the ways of timing. And it makes you listen differently to things like drummers and metronomes and drum machines, and just like really dial into the subdivided beats that make up the 1, 2, 3, 4 that you mentioned. There's 16th notes in there too, that you have to hear those. And you got to really hear pulses, and you got to hear accents, and your feet have got to be trained to execute all that. So just like a drummer has to be able to play with their 2 hands and their 2 feet in different arrangements, like this hand's doing this and the kick's doing a different pattern. You've got to be able to play something, sing something, and kick something to the pedals in different timing. That's the complexity of the thing. And then there's all of the technical side of like, what are all the buttons doing? What are all the, you know, did I remember to delete that loop before I create the new loop? Because I'm trying to create a song that has maybe several looped sections within the song that are of different lengths and have to be recorded, played, deleted, and then a fresh one introduced in its place. And that could happen 2 or 3 or 4 times in a song, depending on what the song needs. Because I'm always trying to think about how can I serve the song best, not how can I show off on a live looping machine, because that's not really what it's about. It's about how do you make the music shine, and how do you make the song get into people's hearts, and how do you make it so memorable or so undeniable that people receive it. You know what I mean? Because there's lots of very simple ways that you can get a song across, and I can do those too. But I'm still, again, tantalized by the idea of cloning myself on stage.
Now, do you think that musicians listen to music a little bit different than, like, say, the fans kind of do?
Oh, undeniably.
The average person?
Yeah. No, it's like, so how do I explain it? It's sort of like if you're sitting and looking out a window as a musician, you're looking out a window for a long period of time at the same scene, let's say like a beautiful backyard garden, right? And you've just been looking at that window for a long time. Somebody just walking by the window for the first time, they might go, hey, a nice garden. And the musician might say, like, yeah, and there's a hummingbird in the elm tree right there. And they're it's mating season. You can see them, making passes at at a female bird, and the person walking by the window wouldn't have seen any of that. They just would have seen a general kind of garden scene. But the musicians have a way of microscopically observing things, musically speaking, that can make it very rewarding eventually for the listener, because they've kind of paid attention to all the details. But it can also be quite torturous for the musician, because they can hear all the mistakes. Especially in live performances, where the person who's just passing and has a general sense of what they're hearing doesn't hear those things. But the musician can't be persuaded that they don't, and doesn't want to be persuaded either. And wants to believe constantly that that there's more work to be done.
I understand actually what you're saying. As a musician myself too, I play drums and tinker with other instruments as well, but there's so many times where I can listen to a song by someone and I can say, wow, listen to that bass line, or listen to those harmonies, and I can talk to someone who's not a musician and they'll say, oh, I can only really hear the vocals here, I can't hear beyond that. I call that under the surface listening. It's when you're sitting down with some headphones and you're listening underneath what's going on top. You're listening to all the meat and bones of the recording and listening underneath. So that's cool.
Yeah, well, sometimes that's actually what happens on repeated listenings.
Yes.
Right. And so, yeah, that's why it's important to remember that those layers don't show up on the first listening for the untrained ear. For your average music listener, they just don't catch it. So you can get away with stuff. You can get away with so much, actually. It's crazy. I went to a and it's good to remember that, because sometimes I can be really hard on myself. But I went to a Meatloaf concert once a few years ago. All right. But the bass player, a guy named Danny Miranda, he's a fan of mine. So he'd been playing Jacob Moon music on the Meatloaf tour bus for this whole tour, which was hilarious. But he said, like, would you come and sit front row center at the Hamilton show and just check out the new tour? We're doing Bat Out of Hell from beginning to end. And I thought, great, Bat Out of Hell, classic,
great record,
rock and roll. Awesome. We all know that record. And so, but then the Meatloaf who showed up to that show was a overweight, kind of like a sweating, unwell man, who didn't sing any of the notes of the songs. He tried, he made noises, but they weren't notes.
Oh, man.
And this should be obvious, not just to me. I don't think this is just for the trained ear that can pick this up. This was a fiasco. Okay. On the first order, he was a mess. Okay. The band was tight. The band nailed everything. The band sounded phenomenal. Background singer's great. Him singing, terrible. I'm sitting in the front row going, oh no. I'm sitting through like the worst performance I've ever seen. I turn around and the whole audience is, the mouths open, just like, yeah, just cheering, loving it. They don't hear what I'm hearing because they've interpolated their memory of what they think it should sound like onto what he's actually doing. And that's an interesting thing too, isn't it? That audiences, they kind of hear what they want to hear,
Mm-hmm.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, wow. I only know like the first two Bat Out of Hell records. Those are the ones that I like the most, but I've never been I've seen a couple of YouTube clips and stuff. And Yeah, just sort of part with what you said, but maybe other people wouldn't pick up on the same thing because they don't have the same tuned ear, you know?
Well, no, Meatloaf fell down on the stage 2 nights later in Edmonton and couldn't continue. The tour was over. Like it was clearly a fiasco. But again, the audience you couldn't persuade them that they weren't hearing the original thing. It was crazy. Yeah. So
just because it's the guy. You know?
It's the guy. Yeah, he looks the part, right? So that's half the battle.
Well, I've got another question for you. So you are a big fan of Peter Gabriel, like Warren and I are, as well as many of the people watching this. And you've done so many great covers, and you've done many great covers of his songs too. You also have 3 kids, and one of your sons' names is Gabriel. Like, did you name him after Peter Gabriel, or was it just?
I was definitely thinking about Peter Gabriel when I named him. Yeah, absolutely. And I have a son named Simon, you know, after Paul Simon.
Right.
And then I have Amelia, just because I like that name. So, yeah. So it's two boys and a girl. Yeah. So, yeah. No, I'm a big Peter Gabriel fan, and I've seen him live, you know, and I have listened to all of his albums, and the covers I do of him are purely out of just the love of what he does and who he is. And, yeah. And I feel a closeness to him, you know, musically, but also, you know, like Daniel Lanois produced some of his albums, some of his best albums, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's from Hamilton.
Hamilton, yeah.
There's a bit of a connection there as well.
So, and I think at this moment that we should, you know, play the video of In Your Eyes, your version of In Your Eyes.
I get so lost sometimes. See the days pass, and this emptiness fills my heart. When I want to run away, drive off in my car. Whichever way I go, I come back to the place you are. And all my instincts, they return, and the grand facade so soon will burn. Without a noise, without my pride, I reach out from the inside. In your eyes, like the heat in your eyes, I am complete. In your eyes, I see the door in your eyes, 1,000 searches. In your eyes, the resolution of all my fruitless searches. Oh, I see the light and the heat, like the heat in your eyes. Oh, I want to be that complete. Wanna touch the light, the heat I see in your eyes. Said love, but I don't like to see so much pain. I've seen so much wasted, and this moment keeps slipping away and away and away. I get so tired working so hard, but I survive. Oh, I look to the time with you, return, and the grand facade so soon will burn, without a noise, without my pride. I'll reach out from the inside. Oh, oh, in your eyes, 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 light the key in your eyes. I'm complete now. I see the doorway to 1,000 churches. Resolution for all my fruitless searches. Oh, I see the light. Yeah, I want to be that complete. I wanna touch the light with the heat I see in your eyes. Accepting all I've done and said, I want to stand and stare again until there's nothing left out. Oh, it remains there in your eyes. Whatever comes and goes, oh, it's in your eyes. You enjoyed that. So Jacob, you're very you have a lot of causes that you support. Can you go and talk about them a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, the main ones that I've supported over the years have been Compassion, which is a child development agency that works with kids who are living in impoverished countries and helps them to get to escape poverty, basically. And it's a one-to-one kind of relationship that you as the sponsor have with your sponsor child. And you can write to them, you can encourage them, you can send them gifts of support and help them on their journey. And now, so I love what they do. They've been doing great work for decades now, for sort of 70 years. And also International Justice Mission is something that's been going on for the last 20 years. And so I've definitely spoken on behalf of International Justice Mission as well. They free slaves around the world. And anyone who's oppressed and is under the law due justice, but they can't get it. International Justice Mission steps in and helps them, believing as they do that we are all, we all have the right to our day in court, to liberty and freedom, and not to be enslaved by people who would seek to abduct or just forcibly make people work for outrageous hours and conditions to repay small sums of money with outrageous interest rates. So anywhere where there's injustice happening, they're fighting it, and I love that about them too. So, but yeah, no, I think injustice in general just kind of gets me. It just kind of makes me feel like, yeah, that's not okay with me. And so I have a sort of gut response to that, and it comes out into my songs. It comes out in the stuff that I feel passionately about.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So lately, you've been a part of a side project called Floodplain, which is like really beautiful and very, very calming music. I'm a big fan. I really like it. What inspired you to form that group?
Yeah, my friend just called me up and said, listen, I've been doing a lot with Spotify. I've been, putting a lot of my own instrumental stuff out there. It's going really well, getting like millions of streams. I think we should make a band that's just the two of us that does some of the same stuff. I'm doing this with other artists too. And so he's quite busy with Spotify in a way that I have not been. And so I thought this is a way for me to learn what he knows about it. Because he's not traditionally been a recording artist. He's been a music coordinator at a church, but hasn't done recording very much. And so I've had him record on my record sometimes, but I was just thought, oh, this is a great thing to encourage him and to kind of help me along. I mean, it turns out that it's the other way around. He's the master of this domain, and I'm just kind of learning about it from him. But the music itself is, a deliberate, sort of response to the chaos and the madness and the noisiness of the world. And it just tries to bring you down to that level where you can relax, you can focus, you can dream, you can breathe, you can pray, any of the things that you need to do. So, so we're excited. We've kind of put out a whole bunch of songs now, and we're going to meet up in January and do a whole bunch of new ones.
So do you think an album will be able to come out of this for Floodplain?
Yeah, I mean, certainly. I mean, a physical album. I don't know if there's an appetite for that these days. But there's enough songs that could be collated onto a playlist, or certainly an album, if you wanted to call it that. I don't know. It's a strange thing. I think people sort of respond to singles now even more than they do albums. But certainly I would love to formalize what we've done so far on an album. That'd be nice.
Very nice.
Yep. So that leads me to a question here. Today's music, a lot of the music today is auto-tuned. And I think it ruins the music. What's your take on auto-tune in the industry?
Yeah, I mean, I have to kind of hold it loosely, because I think it's an instrument. It's just a way for people to manipulate the human voice to make it do things that it can't naturally do. And people have used technology to manipulate drums and bass and guitar and every instrument for years. So it's not unusual that they would do that to the human voice. It just feels like a personal affront to many listeners, because the human voice feels like the one thing that you shouldn't be messing with in that way. If you can sing, sing. If you can't sing, we don't really want to hear you fixing it in the mix with auto-tune. That's my take on it. I think I'd like to hear, it's strange to me when I hear a Michael Bublé album and I can hear the auto-tuner working overtime.
Yeah.
Because that's a guy who can sing. Like he can sing perfectly. There's no need for any auto-tuning on his voice. But producers can't be helped. Like they get their hands on the files, and then they're like, oh, we'll sweeten it. We'll add some of this to it. We'll do some of that to it. And they just, it's sort of like, dog groomers. You know what I mean? You bring your dog to the dog groomer, and you say, just cut him down a little bit. And they get it back, and he looks like some freak show that belongs in the the Kennel Club or something like that. You know what I mean? And the hair is just all poofy and it's all crazy. And you realize that the dog groomer is not cutting him for you; it's cutting him for other dog groomers. You know, and so producers are producing for other producers. And so then it's not always about the music or the art or the artist, you know. And so a lot of, don't get me wrong, a lot of artists want auto tuning on there. They want to just sing a bunch of random things and let the auto tuner kind of make a new melody out of it or something. And
yeah, my take on it is why like a singer like Adele is so popular. She can sing her behind off, to be clean. And she's basically a blues singer. And so blues singers have imperfections. And it's those little imperfections that kind of make her music better in my mind. So that's just, that's my take on autotune with that. So, and why she's so popular. You know, A, you can understand the words, and two, she's a great singer.
Yes. Yeah. She's fantastic. Her new album is really good.
Yeah, it is really good. I agree.
But anyway, so Jacob, recently you just did a sold-out show at the Gasworks, which, for those who may not know, is an iconic Canadian place for musicians of all sorts to play. It's been around for a long time. Over the course of your career, what are some of your favorite events and or venues that you've played at overall in your time as a musician?
Yeah, some favorite ones, I guess. I mean, I loved playing at the Olympia in Montreal when I opened for Marillion back in 2013. That was a special place and a special crowd and a special band to be opening for, since that, as I mentioned before, that was the band I listened to when I was a teenager, before I was a musician. So
Scripture Gestures Tear is a great album, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah, you know their stuff. Yeah, there's lots of albums. Gosh, there's dozens of albums by now.
We're prog heads here.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, you wear it with pride. That's good. So the Olympia stands out. I mean, I've played some folk festivals like the Summer Folk up in Owen Sound. That was pretty special. You know, I played the Walker Theater in Winnipeg. I played the Musical Instrument Museum in Phoenix, Arizona. That was pretty amazing. The Living Room in New York City stands out to me as a place that's pretty special because it's New York City. You gotta get a gig in New York. It's pretty cool. Yeah, so there's been a bunch.
So another question for you is, you know, you do all sorts of music of all kinds, and you do have a lot of folk in what you do. And I wonder what you think of another Canadian artist who goes by Joni Mitchell, who, like yourself, is also a great guitar player, great singer, great songwriter. How did her work influence you in what you do?
Well, I mean, she's the master of alternate tunings and finger picking. Right. And so those two things are something that I use all the time with what I do, because it just opens up the voice of the guitar to be able to play open strings in various keys and to create new sounding textures on the guitar, and to be able to, in a very detailed and almost pianistic sort of way, be able to pick those notes out of the guitar as opposed to just kind of strumming them all together with a plectrum. So in that sense, she was a big influence for sure. And just in the lyricism of her melodies, I would say that was a big influence as well. Just that the idea that the melodies can kind of go anywhere, and that they can suggest that the music go to different time signatures to accommodate the melody. You know, that it's all about like in that folk way, that it's all about the melody is king, and then everybody else has to kind of wrap themselves around the melody rhythmically and harmonically. So that's something that she certainly brought with her music. And yeah, she's just kind of like iconoclastic. She doesn't really care what people want her to do. She's going to do what she wants to do. And that's kind of cool too. You know, just that sort of, the attitude that she brought is pretty cool.
Absolutely.
Now, are there, live or dead, are there any artists that you wish that you would play, that you would play with, and maybe do an album with? What artists, do you wish that you would play with, play for?
Oh, there's so many. There's so many. Yeah, everybody from Sean Colvin to James Taylor, Jackson Brown, Tina Deco, Sarah Groves, Bela Fleck, Bruce Hornsby. That's kind of a short list, That's a good place to start.
That's a good place to start. So
yeah.
Yeah. So what inspires you? Where do you find inspiration for your songs?
Deadlines are a big one. Yeah, for me. Deadlines. Because you can just sort of like dream up all kinds of little snippets of songs and little 30-second clips, little a stanza here, a chord progression there. But yeah, it just feels like it's deadlines every time. That's what makes everything come together and makes anything into anything. That's got to be done by this date. It's the only way it ever happens. So I share that technique with lots of musicians. Mentioned a few of them tonight: Peter Gabriel, James Taylor. These guys are not natural born songwriters. They write because it's time to write an album, and they can go long periods where nothing happens. And it's like, do they still make albums? Those guys, 10 years is nothing for Peter Gabriel, right?
20 years.
So, yeah, well, there's that. Yeah. So that's, I try to make it less, I try to make it more prolific than that. Let's put it that way. So, and yeah.
Yeah, you've done a lot in 25 years with your career. You've got 12 albums and you've got side projects and you've played with, on other people's records and that sort of thing. So that leads me to ask, what is next on your musical palette? What do you feel like you want to do next that maybe you haven't done yet?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to do an instrumental album with a band. That'd be fun. I'd love to do a trio project to really stretch as a guitar player and accompanist as well as a singer. And I think a trio is kind of a nice tight group of guys that can just move pretty nimbly around, and the costs are a little bit more manageable maybe with a trio.
Now, so, what two would those be? What two people, like if you could choose anyone, what two people would you choose to play with to make a trio?
Yeah, to make a trio.
I know a drummer if you need one.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Oh man, yeah, I'd love to play. I mean, maybe it would be Tony Levin and Jerry Marotta.
Yes, yes,
that'd be pretty great.
I can make that happen.
You can.
Yeah, that'd be pretty awesome.
That's awesome.
So those are the guys on Peter Gabriel 3 and 4, right?
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
absolutely.
What part does religion play in your life? You're a very religious man, and
yeah, I mean, I don't sort of use the word religion, I guess, because it feels like a bit of a dirty word these days for whatever reason.
More like
it's
faith.
more about it's about faith. It's about spiritual orientation, and and in my case, it's in a fairly orthodox direction of Christianity, but not in a super religious or legalistic framework. I guess it's a little bit more about grace. It's more about generosity, and it's more about listening and sort of meditative practices than it is about bashing people over the head with Bibles and lecturing people, so So that's kind of my take on it, I guess you could say. And it sort of just influences, the music that I make and the way that I do it and the way that I don't do it, So yeah, all of that. But yeah, you can hear it in the music. You can pick it up if you're looking for it. And if you want to ignore it, you can do that too. It's definitely ignorable.
Mm-hmm. Now, okay, if you had everyone's unfettered attention around the world, what message would you give the world right now?
Oh, what message would I give the world? I wouldn't want to. I'd say back to whatever you were doing before you were interrupted by me and my address. Yeah. I don't think I would have necessarily anything directive to say to the world. You know what I mean? It would probably be some kind of a word of encouragement, like "Don't give up." Like Peter Gabriel would say. "Don't give up. Hang in there. You're going to be fine." It's you just you gotta have faith. You gotta believe. You got to believe in yourself. Believe in something higher than you, and in each other as well. That's kind of a good place to start.
Yep. Now with your moon at noon, moon at noons and your moon at nines, where can people find you? Where if they wanted to see these concerts, where can they find this?
Facebook. It's just facebook.com/Jacob Moon Music. Simple as that. That's a good place to start. Or youtube.com/Jacob Moon. All that stuff is linkable from my website, which is just jacobmoon.com.
Yeah. You do something with Patreon, stuff like that. If people wanted to be a member and all stuff like that, what would that,
Yeah, I mean, for like $5 a month, you can, or more, if you want to, you can become a patron who helps me to make new music, to make new music videos, and to reach more people with the stuff I'm trying to do. And you can, by helping on a monthly basis, it helps me to know how much I have to work with to make this new music. So, and to be kind of limber and just, shake it up and hire people to be on my album or to shoot a video or whatever it is. So that's what I use those funds for, is for making more cool stuff that we all enjoy, so.
Mm-hmm. Now you're going to be going on a Christmas tour very soon.
Yeah, I'm on it right now.
Yeah, you're on it right now. So do you want to talk about that a little bit? It's
every year there's a Christmas tour of some kind. It's me and some friends of mine perform some shows, and sometimes it's with a band, sometimes it's with a duo, sometimes it's solo, string quartet. There's a lot of different configurations, and we play some of the songs of the season that everybody knows, some of the stuff that people don't know, some original stuff, and we shake it up, and it's a lot of fun.
If ever you want another guy to make music with, I write and play all the time. So
you heard it here first, folks.
Yeah, first.
Broadway.
I'd love to do something with you sometime.
Yeah, right on, man. Right on.
All right.
That's cool.
So how long have you been playing guitar? You started around your teens, you said, when you got serious about it. How long ago was that?
Oh, a bunch of years. Yeah, at least 5. At least, maybe 6. No, it's been a while. And it's. But like I said, I didn't get serious about it until it was time to get off to something after high school, and it was like, we're going to go for university. So I went to Laurier and, studied music there for 4 years, and I learned a lot there. Not a lot of musical theory that I needed for what I do now, or practical stuff. But it was good to kind of scare myself into trying to apprehend and learn something that felt a little bit out of reach for me, because I was pretty new to being a music maker when I applied. for university.
Right on, right on.
So it was tough. There's people who've been playing cello since they were 2, you know, as my classmates. And I think they all probably looked at me like, who's this guy? You know, I felt so the imposter syndrome was pretty strong at university. But after leaving it, I noticed that a lot of them kind of went off and took straight jobs doing something boring, you know, and I kind of decided to just jump right headlong into being a solo performer and entrepreneur and, you know, be fully in the music business, you know, in all the danger that entails of poverty and failure. So, but, you know, by sticking with it I think you got to stick with anything like that for 5 or 6 years, you know, before you kind of really know what's possible. And it kind of led something.
Now, do you see yourself becoming like a music producer or down the future? Because you said that you wanted to get into the more technical aspect behind the music and all stuff like that. Do you see yourself maybe opening up a studio and producing other people's music?
I can't see myself opening a studio, but I can see myself working at a studio with an artist. Like I could see that'd be something that'd be interesting to do. Yeah, for sure.
Now, have you ever written music for other people?
Yeah, I have. I mean, you know, I haven't. In most cases, they haven't recorded it. It's been me that ends up recording it. But I've written with people in mind, and it's helped me complete songs that would have otherwise taken a long time to complete or would have not been completed at all. So it's been good to sometimes just imagine this person singing it, and then you can kind of hear it all. It's all kind of really obvious in your head. It's a good technique, actually, a good device to use for songwriting.
And we've talked about your influences, like from, you know, your classic influences like Joni Mitchell and Peter Gabriel and all that. Are there any modern artists out to this, like, and you know, out around now who you listen to and you go, gosh, I really like what they do? I'll give you an example. There's an Englishman named Ed Sheeran, and he's a great acoustic guitar player, great singer, great songwriter. He does quite a bit of the acoustic, not necessarily the looping, but he does kind of samples. Like, he doesn't ever play with a band. I don't think he does samplings all with pedals and things like that. Do you ever listen to any of his work or anybody out there now and just kind of go, oh, I'm super into what this specific artist does? Maybe I'll, you know?
Yeah, I mean, the modern artists that I dig are people like Ray LaMontagne, James Morrison,
right?
You know, James Bay, just anyone with the first name James, basically. But Ed Sheeran's cool. He's all right. He's he's sort of, I think he's a populist at heart, you know. Yeah. So that's, you know, it's only so much of that I can listen to, I guess, at the end of the day. But I respect his talent. I think at some point he's probably sold that talent to the service of, you know, being a global phenomenon, right? And I tend to like people who are not so eager to be a global superstar, that are have something very specific to say and something very targeted and very maybe even slightly eccentric or whatever it is. But like, I don't think you'd ever sort of see Tom Waits, you know, trying to auto-tune his way to the top of the charts, you know.
No, and that's the thing is with Ed's studio music, you're absolutely right. He's definitely gone more of the pop route as opposed to the acoustic route. But if you go see him live, he's very much scaled back with just the acoustic thing, and you know, like with his little sampler. The studio is another animal, but live is for sure. It's where a lot of artists sort of get to flourish, and what they do is in a live setting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I can see that.
For sure.
Where can people see you and buy tickets to see you and like on your current tour?
So that'd be just jagamoon.com/events. They've got some remaining shows are there. There's only a couple more remaining shows that they can catch and get tickets to. They're both getting close to sold out. So yeah,
Mhm.
act fast, I would say.
Okay.
Well,
So
everybody, don't forget to join his Patreon right now and get the updates and get the new music and all that stuff. Everybody join. I'm going to be doing it too. Join.
Thanks, man.
Yeah,
I appreciate
I
that, Cody.
definitely agree. Yeah, I'll be joining too. So,
Nice.
that's it. So, I think we're gonna, send everyone out with a nice Christmas song. Rise up, shepherd, and follow. It's called. So,
Yeah, this was recorded live. Yeah.
And and like anything you want to close out with, Jacob, before we go?
Yeah, just people can check out my new album, which will come out in January. It'll be available on my website, and they can pre-order it starting in about a week from the website as well. So yeah, it's gonna be a little 6-song EP of original stuff under the name just Jacob Moon. Never had an eponymous album before, so it's time.
Okay, you're copying Peter Gabriel.
so
Actually, yeah, Lindsey Buckingham's new album is just called Lindsey Buckingham. So there you go.
Yeah.
Can we buy any of your music on physical form, or do you strictly do digital downloads?
Yeah, you can get Shelter Me, the deluxe remastered edition, and you can also get 20 Years, the best of Jacob Moon. Those are the 2 titles that I have on CD and vinyl still remaining in stock.
Right on. Everybody, you hear that? Go on and do it.
Go on and do it. Exactly.
Right on, guys.
Thank you, Jacob.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time, my friend.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate this.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, cheers. Yeah.
There's a star on Christmas Eve. Rise up, shepherd, and follow. We'll lead to the place where Christ was born. Rise up, shepherd, and follow. Follow, follow. Rise up, shepherd, and follow. Follow the star over Bethlehem. Rise up, shepherd, and follow.
Hey guys, thanks for watching all the way to the end. I am trying to make more of these videos, and it takes time, it takes gear, it takes all that stuff. Time off the road as well. And so if you want to help me to just make more stuff that we both like, I would love to have your help over at jacomoon.com/support. You can learn all about my Patreon page there and how to become part of that very elite group of fans who are helping to shape what comes out next and to just support what I do as a musician. I really, really appreciate it, and I hope to see you over there at patreon.com/JacobMoon real soon. Thanks so much.